This is Alcohol Freedom Finders. This week we talk to Cari Wolters from Michigan. Cari is now a seasoned coach, helping high-achieving women. But she takes us back to 2020, where she was deep in the struggle of drinking every night, and hangovers and anxiety every day. With her relationship strained and self-doubt about the kind of mother she was to her young kids, she used curiosity to find her way out. Let's jump in and find out how.
So, hey everybody, I am genuinely super excited today. Couldn't be more delighted and excited to have Cari Wolters with us, who is a sober, curious life coach, and we can't wait to hear her Alcohol Freedom Finder story.
Hi, Cari.
I am so excited to share. Hey guys.
Great to see you. Great to see you. We've known each other now, 18 months, nearly 2 years perhaps. And I know a little bit about your story from sort of times when we've had group our own stories. Why don't you back to when you first sort of thought, okay, I need to do something about the way I'm drinking, and how that came about, and how you ultimately found alcohol freedom.
Yeah. So thank you for having me, Barry and Justine, my friends from afar, as I'm in the United States and you guys are across in your countries, which is beautiful. Just so grateful to be here with you. My story started when I started getting curious, should we say, hence Sober Curious Life Coach. I like to lead myself in curiosity, and it has really been a theme throughout my entire life when it comes to alcohol. And so in 2020, I decided I needed to get curious with the substance of alcohol, right? I was like, gotta get curious of like, do I need this anymore? Is this really bringing me joy, and all the things? I just had to go into this state of questioning myself of, what is this substance, and is it what I think it is? Because I'm giving a lot of power to it. And it almost felt like I was losing myself in October of 2020. And so let's rewind back to curiosity. Curiosity started when I was a little girl. I was very curious in my home and who I was, and curious about my faith, curious about what it was to be a woman in this world, curious about how to connect with God. Curiosity was everywhere. And one thing that wasn't in my house as a child was alcohol. So there was no curiosity there for me. Alcohol wasn't existent. I grew up in a religious home. And so it was kind of like, oh, that's a non-issue. However, what happened for me and my personality, because I'm very curious, but also like a little rebellious, right? Is, oh, there's no alcohol in the house. Yeah, exactly. I wonder why. And when I maybe leave the house, what will that be like? What role will alcohol play? And I was very curious about that. So I had, minimal experiences with alcohol in my teenage years. But then once I left the house and became of age here in the States at 21 years old, I had my first drinks with my brothers, and that's really the curiosity began. And I kind of felt good when I drank alcohol. Like, it gave me, that buzz. I don't think that I would even recognize it. It just kind of like relaxed me, but it wasn't anything that I was too much more curious about beyond that. And that's really where it started for me. And it just sort of increased over time, right? And so my curiosity was like, oh, I had a hard day at work. I think maybe I should have a glass of wine, Oh, my coworkers are going out for happy hour. I should drink. So that's how it kind of all began, but it all was out of that lens of curiosity. And it was a slow growth. It was super slow and gradual.
I totally resonate with that. It's almost like, I don't know, as you were talking, it took me to being that teenager and finding alcohol. It's almost like, when everything's so tricky as a teenager and you don't quite know who your friends are and which boys are going to like you and which girls are going to like you, go, but I had got this one thing that's always going to be my friend. And oh my God, I found it. And how cool is that? So it's almost like alcohol becomes your little buddy that you go out with, and you feel like you feel like you're bulletproof. So with that in mind, what was your biggest struggle? And when did you start realizing that maybe alcohol wasn't the friend, actually she was a toxic friend? When did you start to notice that?
Yeah, so that was in 2019, 2020, the pandemic really had nothing to do with it, honestly, for me, because I was drinking every night anyways. And so that is when I realized that my best friend, alcohol at that time, was taking over everything. I needed it to function. I needed it for my anxiety. I needed it to take care of me. I needed it after my kids went to bed. I needed it in order to achieve in my work. I've been in the business world for a decade now, and I was able to build a couple brands through my own voice and branding and with other companies. And I was always achieving to get to the top, and alcohol got the credit for that. I almost like gave alcohol the credit, like, yeah, I can do this because I'm drinking at night, take the edge off. And so it became pretty toxic. I would say that's a good word for it. And then it started, really affecting my relationships with my husband and my children. My children maybe didn't even realize it because I was pretty high functioning, but I did have a defining moment after a year and a half of becoming curious. So I did from October 2020 until February of 2022, so about a year and a half, I got curious again of what would it be like without my best friend? What would it be like without my alcohol buddy? What would it be like if I went to my friend's house without alcohol? And I just started to become, more mindful. And in that journey, my children realized I was drinking less. And they started realizing, they said to me, Mom, you don't have your wine glass out anymore. I was like, oh my goodness, you're right. I said, that's a really good observation. And I mean, we're talking they're 10, 9, and 5 at the time. And so they're noticing that Mom's wine glass isn't full of wine anymore, or actually it was non-existent, right? And so then February 2022 comes around. I have been on and off mindfully drinking days, weeks, months without it. And then February 2022 comes around, and it's Super Bowl party. And here in the States, man, it should be a holiday, honestly. That's when we just all watch football and drink. And I had wine with my girlfriend, and my son, and I hadn't had wine in weeks. And my son comes around the corner, and, he just said to me, Mom, I didn't think you were doing that anymore. And I was like, mouth drop, right? For those that are listening, and my mouth just dropped. And I thought, wow, my daughter was right there. And it's like, what's Mom going to say? And, I just said, you know what? I'm going to make this choice tonight. I decided that this is okay. We can make choices in life. I made it very, as an adult, we can make choices, and they understood, and there really wasn't any question about it. But I knew in that moment. And then my girlfriend told me we drank a couple bottles that night, which I hadn't done in months, maybe even a year. And I said, I remember thinking, I'm never going to do this again. And so I had a terrible hangover. I got my kids home safely, had a terrible hangover. And I said to myself, this is my day. This is my alcohol freedom. Yay. This is my journey. It's going to be my lifestyle, So yes. And the most surprising thing, go ahead.
I was going to say that's such a beautiful journey that to have sort of, just through curiosity have just questioned it for yourself and taken breaks and not done it the way that we're sort of programmed, or I don't know, the way that we sort of think we ought to do it is just sort of say, white knuckle it and say no, and then fail, and then no and fail, and just be curious and try and what it is that it's doing for you, what it is that you're trying to get from it, and are you getting it, and all that kind of stuff is much more productive, and you start to sort of take away the illusion of benefits that we give it credit for. What would you say to someone, because it's a very scary moment when you sort of say to yourself, I need to do something, and the traditional thing is take a break and bury your head in the sand and hope for the best kind of thing. What would you say is a better way to reframe things or approach things if you are thinking to yourself, I need to do something?
Yeah. I would say start with pausing and getting curious. So instead of white knuckling it and saying, I'm going to do this forever, or I'm going to take a break for 50 days, because sometimes already I think to myself, fear creeps into people's minds. Like you get a little fearful of that. So let's just start with curiosity. You know, we were talking about a tree and it has a base and it has a bunch of roots, right? And one of the roots and foundations in my life is curiosity. It's a root. And in that curiosity, things are going to grow. And then what is going to stick and grow and produce fruit, and what's going to die, right? So why don't we just start there with curiosity? And so just pause before you have that drink and say, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Okay. Is alcohol going to feed this feeling? Like, is alcohol going to feed it? Okay. And can I find another way to feel? Is there another way to, outside of alcohol, that I can find stress relief? So for me, it was anxiety, right? I would feel anxiety, get really curious. And so start with curiosity, friends, everybody that's listening. Start there and have it lead you, and pause and write it down in a journal. You know, write it in your phone or talk to yourself in a voice memo. That's what I tell my clients. Talk to yourself, pause, and just get curious and figure out, how am I feeling? Will alcohol feed this feeling? And can I find another way? And if not, okay, drink it. You know, have the glass.
Thinking there that you talked about earlier about your best friend earlier being toxic friend, making you feel, and that is actually not you. That is an outside source, which is the alcohol being the toxic thing. So I was going to ask you what you'd replace this toxic friend with, and I can now see clearly that you've now got this curious friend. So you have a direct replacement. Instead of having toxicity, you have curiosity.
That's beautiful, Justine. I love how you said that. Yeah, great connection. So sure, talk to that curious friend. You know, talk to her. What is she saying back to you? That she's going to take away your pain? Is she going to take away your anxiety? Yeah, she wants you to believe that. And is that true?
Yeah.
Is it going to take away my anxiety if I have this drink? Is it going to help me? Will it make me a better person and help me have more fun? Is it going to make me a better mom? Wait a minute. That curiosity girl best friend over there is liquid. See how it just sort of takes you into a state of like curiosity that almost it is very an illusion that we've created. And it's that cognitive dissonance. I know it's a big word for listeners, but we have two voices going on in our head. So for me, it's my voice and it's the curiosity voice.
And were you able to use that curiosity in the tough times? You know, I imagine there must have been moments where you did slip and you had a drink and you weren't intending to, or, you know, did you have those sort of moments, and could you maintain curiosity and hold it lighter than maybe some people do and beat yourself up, or were you able to sort of analyze it more? Or
yeah, I think what's really cool about curiosity is you can allow yourself whatever choice you would like. And so I'm going to allow myself to have the drink because I do believe in this moment it's going to feed my anxiety and help me feel less stress. Right. So let me just see what's that like. And what happened for me, Barry, was when I was able to do that, the next day I would have raging anxiety. Like, okay, I just had 2-3 glasses of wine. The next day, my curiosity friend is still there going, so how do you feel? Did it help you? Did it give you did I give you what you wanted? You know, it's like you talk to, it's like, well, best friend, curiosity Cari over there, you did not give me what I wanted. I feel terrible. I am hungover. I'm super anxious. And I yelled at my kids today. That was my thing. My anxiety did not help me become a better mom. And there was a question you guys had asked in your notes about like, what was your biggest struggle? And my biggest struggle in my curiosity phase and before I stepped into alcohol freedom was I believed I was a bad mom and that I wasn't a very good mom because I yelled at my kids. well, why was I yelling at my kids? I mean, I think it's pretty human of us. I still have my moments. Trust me, I raise my voice and, we are still parents. And to this day, right, I check myself. Okay, when I do raise my voice, is this legit, Cari? It's curiosity again. Is this legit? Do my kids need this right now? Oh, yep. Okay, it's all right. Whereas before it was just off the handle. I'm right away. My anxiety is raging. I am more irritable and I'm going to, raise my voice at them. And that just honestly just dug at my heart. And it created this belief that I was a terrible mom. And so the curiosity and even that moment that I had shared where my son was like, Mom, I didn't think you were doing that anymore. That spoke to my struggle. He spoke to my struggle. It's my beautiful son looking in my face, right? Saying this to me. And I'm thinking, I've been a really good mom for the past year and a half. I have been drinking less alcohol. My anxiety has decreased. Like, Cari, isn't that the life that you want? Because alcohol doesn't need to be the front and center anymore. And so I just decided, in that moment, I'm like, I'm going to believe that I am a good mom and I'm going to start stepping into alcohol freedom. And that's my freedom finder story. Was I found myself. I found out that I was a really good mom and I have a lot to offer the world, and my self-esteem increased too. So there's so many benefits. Now, are you still going to struggle with being a mom? Yes. Are you still going to have bad days? Yes. Are you going to, have low self-esteem days, guys? Yeah. Because it's not the magic pill, honestly. And Justine, we talked about that. Once you step into alcohol freedom, and it isn't a magic pill, but what is magic is you have tools and strategies that when you are feeling anxious, you can go in and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? What's happening right now? And so everything that led you into alcohol freedom, you now have the tools and strategies to even cope with your own life.
I love that so much. And I think that's where the gold is for me in this work. It's not that we are kind of different to others. How come they have managed to stop drinking? That looks just way too hard for me. People think that there's either the people that are going to dark basements and have to stop drinking, or this crazy breed of people that are making a choice not to drink. And how do they do that? And that's strange. And are they goodies or are they boring? All those sort of other labels that get used to describe us. And I am literally, I'm a party girl, and that has not changed. I still love to go dance. I still love all the stuff. I just get to make different choices. So tell us about some of the different choices you've been making for yourself now that you're an alcohol freedom finder, Cari.
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. Well, I am a super fun person. I thought that alcohol was what was making me fun. And now I realize my authenticity is what's fun. And so completely embracing who I am. And I love my faith, who God's created me to be. Like, I'm fully her and present. And when tough times come up, I know exactly how to lean into it and how to have these tools. But I love to go out for coffee. I love to go out with my friends for dinner. I like to go to parties as well, Super Bowl parties. I went bowling is a thing here in the States. It's a new thing. I don't know if you have it by you guys, but it's called bowling. I went bowling with friends and I'd say, hey, what are you guys drinking? And I get them their alcohol. Like, it works for me because I am not attached to it. It brings me, I'm fully detached from it. So I'm able to be in a room with alcohol and say, hey, what are you guys drinking? What do you want to do? Let's take a selfie together. I posted on social media the other day with them. It was great. I'm doing all the things I would do with alcohol. I just get to choose to do it without and live in my authenticity.
I love that. I love that. It's such a great thing to realize, when you're out with good friends and having good time, and then you realize, oh, I'm not drinking, they're all drinking, and you're thinking, they seem to need to have that drink to be able to have the good time, and I don't need it anymore. And isn't that, oh God, I wish they knew, I wish they understood. I don't want to lecture them, but this is something that if everybody knew what it was really like, they're looking at you thinking, is she really? She must be on something because she's having a great time, and she's not drinking, and people sort of look at you and they want to feel sorry for you, and And actually, you think, Paul, you don't need to feel sorry for me. I'm really well done with it. I'm happy and surprising thing for me. What sort of things have surprised you since other than that, perhaps since you found freedom?
It's been surprising how accepted really I've been. It's been surprising that I've been accepted in my communities and my friends. And then what's been surprising is there are friends in my life that I did say goodbye to. And I think that's to be noted. When I was getting curious and I was sober curious, I went out with a group of friends and I wasn't having fun alcohol free. It wasn't bringing me joy. And I'm like, I don't think these are my people. It has nothing to do with them. It's everything to do with me. I was here for the booze. I wasn't here for the friends. And so it's been surprising that how fluid that is and how freeing that is in my alcohol and freedom finder story. It's like I found myself and I also found my people.
Yeah, I really feel what you're saying there. And it's like a lot of the reason why friend alcohol was fear in the first place, fear of not fitting in, fear of not being enough, fear of the future. What did it bring? It's kind of, we tagged along with it. And just because we're now, free and feeling really good about being free, it doesn't mean that life itself is full of freedom. It's still full of fearful challenges. Like, how am I going to make this coaching thing? How's that going to work? How am I going to make a go of my relationships with people that are still drinking and going home early? Because I like to go out, but I certainly like to go home early. I guess what I'm saying is, just because we're free doesn't mean life is some kind of walk in the park swinging our daisies. It just means that we're more capable and clear and intentional with our work. What would you say your biggest fear around being free from your toxic friend?
Fear still comes.
Exactly.
It still exists, right? Like, we have fear. That's what I heard you saying. So I was processing that. There's still fear of, can I run a successful business? Fear of, can I, reach a 6-figure income coaching, right? There's lots of fear. There's fear of my kids and what they're experiencing in this world. I mean, I think fear is all around us, honestly, right? And it's really learning to recognize it and say to myself, what's the thought behind this? Like, what am I afraid of? Right? And, I'm afraid that this won't be able to support my family. Okay, where does that come from? And instead of like looking at fear and saying, I can't deal with you right now, come here, alcohol, come here. It's like, okay, fear, bring it on. It's here. I'm going to allow this to come. This is a hard moment. I'm going to sit with it and I'm going to get curious with this fear and think, okay, now I'm feeling this way. What's something to help me feel a little less fear, right? It's like how we talk about in coach, we're turning around our thoughts. So it's a process of almost like recognizing the fear and knowing that I'm still safe. I'm still okay. Nothing else has changed. Everything is still here. And being able to see also the positive within the fear. Well, you're having this for a reason because you love what you get to do, which is coaching. You want to help change other people's lives. You want to have your children be these successful, beautiful citizens in this world, and you want them to have good character. So there's fear here for a reason. And so what do I need to loosen up my control? And whereas before alcohol would just, I would feel fear and I would numb it. I'd be like, oh, I do not like how that feels. So I am just I'm going to drink this away and not deal with it. And we build those patterns in our life. And the coolest thing about our alcohol freedom finder story is now that we found freedom, we now found the freedom to think. We now have the freedom to think. We have the freedom to feel. We have the freedom to reframe. We have the freedom to move forward and be okay and still say I'm safe and I'm okay, even though I'm feeling uncomfortable.
That's really good. I mean, for me, it was similarly. It felt once I got away from it and got some space and realized, the time and the opportunity that I was getting back, kind of thing. I realized, God, it was robbing me of that chance to deal with the things that were coming up and you immediately reach for the drink and try and push them away, rather than, okay, I am anxious and I have had a stressful day. Why was that? Could I do anything different about it? Or do I drink something, forget about it for an hour or two, and then wake up in the morning with even higher levels of stress hormones? That's really, really powerful. We have a tradition where we ask, as the last question, what are the 3 words that you would use to sort of define your finding of alcohol freedom? Do you have 3 words for us?
I have one word, and that's authenticity. Just living, I guess 3 words, living in authenticity. So for me, it's just been able to live in my authentic self, whether myself is afraid, whether myself has fear, whether myself has joy, whether myself feels empowered, that I'm going to show up authentically and lead myself in that. And that's been the greatest blessing in my life, I would say.
I love that so much. And I'm guessing if people are finding you as a coach, will help them find their own alcohol freedom. And how find you, Cari?
Yeah, so people can find me on social media platforms, of course, which is on Instagram, Sober Curious Life. On Facebook is my name, Cari Wolters, and also my website, sobercuriouslifecoaching.com. You can book a call there and we can have a chat.
You're based where again? So obviously we're all over the world, as you said at the beginning. Barry's in Amsterdam, I'm in New Zealand, and you are
in Michigan.
In Michigan. So
I'm in Eastern time.
Is there a certain type of person that you would resonate most with, or just open to anyone?
Yes. So I love to work with high achieving women that are in a professional setting. They're in corporate world, or they're business owners and entrepreneurs, and they have control over their entire life except for when it comes to alcohol. They're not able to control alcohol for some reason, and they find themselves unwinding with wine every single night, and they're tired and they want a different way. And so I work with women like that.
Well, you're not going to be short of women like that, because I know a lot of them myself. Cari, thank you. I just want to thank you so much for being with us today. I always love spending time with you, and you speak to my heart, and vulnerability and authenticity, that's what gets me high. It really does. It makes me feel so good.
Same. We're gonna have a great evening tonight, aren't we? Right? We'll go high on our authenticity together.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cari. Yeah, and you're looking great. I remember seeing some of those before and after photos of you, and you look about 20 years younger than you did in some of those photos with the sort of very short hair and looking like a bit like a much older lady. And you're looking fantastic. It's really suiting you.
Thank you, Barry, Justine. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It's time. It's time for people to find their freedom finder story.
Brilliant.